Imagine waking up tomorrow in Westeros, not as Jon Snow, not as Daenerys Targaryen, not as someone with a castle, a famous family name, or a dragon circling above your head. You are simply another man in the Seven Kingdoms. A sword, maybe a horse, and whatever instincts you already have. The world around you is not a story anymore. It is daily life. How long do you last? A year? A month? A few days? But the first question to ask yourself is, where do you go? Staying on the road is dangerous. Bandits move through the countryside constantly, especially during wartime. Traveling merchants are robbed, farmers disappear, and anyone carrying supplies becomes a target. So maybe you head toward the nearest village. That seems safer. At least there are people. But villages in Westeros are not protected communities the way modern towns are. When armies pass through, they take whatever food they need. If the soldiers are loyal to a cruel lord, the villagers are lucky if food is the only thing they lose. So now you have your first decision. Do you stay independent and try to survive quietly, or do you swear loyalty to someone powerful who might protect you? Joining a lord's household sounds like the safer option. Protection comes with soldiers, walls, and resources, but that protection only lasts as long as the lord you serve survives. Thousands of men followed Robb Stark during the War of the Five Kings. At the time, it looked like the safest possible alliance. Robb kept winning battles. His army grew stronger with every victory. Then the Red Wedding happened. In a single night, soldiers who believed they were on the winning side were slaughtered because their leader trusted the wrong allies. If you had sworn loyalty to that army, your story would probably end there. So maybe you avoid politics entirely. Instead of serving a lord, you try to live the way hedge knights do in the Dunk and Egg stories. Sir Duncan the Tall begins his life exactly that way. No land, no powerful house, just a sword, a horse, and the hope that small acts of service might earn him food or coin. It sounds like freedom, until you realize how fragile that life really is. In The Hedge Knight, Duncan accidentally angers Prince Aerion Targaryen. Aerion is cruel, powerful, and completely willing to destroy anyone who embarrasses him. Suddenly, Duncan finds himself facing a trial by combat that could easily kill him. What started the conflict? One conversation. One insult. That is enough in Westeros. This is something modern people underestimate. Our brains expect systems that limit violence. Laws exist. Courts intervene. Institutions step in when power is abused. Westeros barely has those systems. Authority exists, but it is unstable. The person with the most power decides what the rules mean, which means survival depends heavily on understanding people, and people are unpredictable. Even if you avoid powerful enemies, the environment itself remains dangerous. Traveling between towns can take days. Roads are unsafe. A broken wagon wheel or a twisted ankle could leave you stranded somewhere far from help. Then there is disease. Without modern medicine, infections become deadly quickly. A small cut from a rusty blade or a dirty arrow could kill someone within days. Survival is not just about avoiding violence. It is about avoiding accidents. Let's say you manage that. You stay careful. You keep moving between safer towns. You avoid soldiers and stay away from anyone with political power. A few months pass. Then war reaches you anyway. This happens repeatedly in the Riverlands during the War of the Five Kings. Villages are burned simply because they stand between two armies. Farmers lose everything because their land sits on a strategic road. If you happen to live in the wrong place at the wrong time, survival becomes a matter of luck. So maybe you leave the countryside entirely. Cities offer protection, walls, and markets. In theory, they are safer. But cities introduce a new danger. Politics! King's Landing is the perfect example. Power shifts constantly inside the capital. Alliances change. Advisors betray kings. Noble families compete for influence. People rise quickly, and they fall even faster. Think about Ned Stark again. He entered King's Landing believing that honesty and honor would protect him. Instead, he discovered that the city runs on manipulation and fear. Trusting the wrong people ended his life. The same pattern appears everywhere in Westeros. Petyr Baelish survives by understanding that power rarely comes from strength. It comes from knowing how people behave when they feel threatened. Fear makes people impulsive, Ambition makes them reckless, and pride makes them blind. If you spend enough time in that environment, you begin to notice another problem: stress. The human brain is designed to handle short bursts of danger. When the body senses a threat, stress hormones prepare you to fight or escape. But when danger never disappears, that system begins to damage decision-making. Long periods of stress increase suspicion and impulsive behavior. People begin to misread situations. They overreact to small threats or underestimate real ones. In a world like Westeros, that psychological pressure never stops, which makes mistakes inevitable. Now imagine you make it through all of that. You avoided the worst battles. You stayed away from powerful enemies. You learned how to read people carefully. Half a year passes. Then the next threat arrives: winter. In Westeros, winter can last for years. Crops fail. Livestock dies. Trade slows down. Hunger spreads quickly through villages and cities alike. Food becomes the most valuable resource in the entire kingdom. And if you do not control land or supplies, survival becomes extremely difficult. Many people who survive wars do not survive the winters that follow them. Let's assume you prepare as best you can. You find steady work, you store food, you avoid conflict. Eventually, 1 full year passes. You made it. But look at what your survival actually depended on. You needed good instincts. You needed to avoid dangerous people. You needed to stay away from armies and political conflicts. Most importantly, you needed luck. A lot of it. When people imagine themselves in dangerous worlds like Westeros, they usually picture themselves as heroes, clever strategists who see danger before everyone else does. But history rarely works that way. Most people living in violent societies were not heroes. They were farmers caught between armies, travelers caught on the wrong road, or soldiers following orders they never questioned. The stories we watch follow the survivors. Characters like Tyrion Lannister, Jon Snow, or Sir Duncan the Tall. But for every character whose story continues, thousands of others disappear quietly from the world around them. They made one wrong decision, or they simply existed in the wrong place at the wrong time. So if you woke up in Westeros tomorrow without armor, allies, or a famous name protecting you, would you survive 1 year? Or would your story end the same way most lives in that world do? Suddenly, and long before anyone remembers your name, psychologists call it the optimism bias. The human brain is wired to believe that worst-case outcomes happen to other people, not to us. We instinctively imagine ourselves as the exception, the clever one, the one who sees danger before everyone else does. But that cognitive blind spot would not disappear just because the world around you changed. The people who died at the Red Wedding also believed they had read the situation correctly. They trusted their allies. They followed a man who kept winning. They did everything that survival logic would suggest, and they still ended up on the wrong side of history. The real lesson is not that Westeros is brutal. It is that most of us are far less prepared for that kind of world than we quietly believe we are. And that particular truth does not belong to Westeros alone. If this kind of thinking interests you, the psychology behind why humans survive or fail, subscribe for more.